Hey guys! So today you and I are going to talk about asking for help. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, when do I know how to ask for help? Or when do I know that I've done what I need in order to be ready to ask for help from a senior coworker? And I think this is a good question, but it's also a very tricky question because it's the sort of thing that becomes very difficult to answer. I mean, is it 5 minutes, is it 10 minutes, is it an hour, is it 2 hours, etc., etc., etc. So I'm just going to give you the best answer that I can give you, which is that, of course, it depends, but what it depends upon is the complexity of the problem and the investment that you have done yourself into solving said problem. What I mean by that is pretty much that anyone who wants to help anybody, I mean, this is true for you as well, wants to have the sensation that the person who is asking for help has made an effort, that there is a respect for your time, or there has already been a significant effort on that person's part into solving this problem, and that they are limited in some fashion and they do actually need help here. Nobody wants to feel like you're just being used. You can think of it yourself. Have you ever had a friend who's just called you up to do some chore at their house and you kind of feel like they are perfectly capable of doing this themselves? They're just lazy, or like they're just asking you because they don't want to do it. It's not a limitation on their side. It's not actually asking for help. They just want you to do it for them, so it can be a little bit more convenient. Parents with millennial kids may or may not be able to relate to this, I've heard. Anywho, that's the mindset that you should have. So that basically means that if you sit down and, let's say for the sake of argument, that you have a scope of a feature that is fairly small. Let's say that there's a mode, a dialogue, or a button, or something that is misbehaving, or something like that. Now, if you're going to do your own investigation on a scope that is that tiny, well, it could be bigger, of course, as well, but this is something that could be kind of small, then asking for help, well, you should at the very least be able to figure out some stuff, right? Doing that preparation work is the important part here in making someone feel as if you have actually prepared, like you've actually tried yourself. But for such a small scope, you shouldn't have to wait all that long to ask for help if it's beyond you to figure out if this works or not, because, well, you can think of it as a rabbit hole for the problem, where the rabbit hole is very short. Like, you should be able to get to a point where you don't really know how to progress here within a fairly short amount of time. So then you can go and ask for help. In such a scenario, you might go and ask for help within minutes or an hour or like something like that. Not that long, right? But let's say for the sake of argument that you have something more tricky. Let's say that you are having some issues with memory leaks or something like that. That is much more tricky to figure out. Or let's say that you have a flaky feature where occasionally it will crash the system, or occasionally it will create some result, like place an order it's not supposed to place or something like that. Something that happens every so often. Now that is much trickier. It's the sort of thing that can take even a senior developer could spend days on figuring something like that out. So for you, you can think of it as a similar sort of investment. You would have to sit for quite some time to go through that rabbit hole and find all the different paths and all the different things that just check it out. Do your homework, make sure that you have done your best to try to figure out where the area of the problem is. Especially if the scope is large, this is going to take quite some time. Some investigations into problems like these can take up towards a day, and you may not ask for somebody else's help until such a point that you have actually investigated all of this. And what's even more important here is to remember that the person that you are asking for help may or may not actually know the answer. Like, it might end up that you are together trying to figure out the rest of the problem. So if you have really done your homework and prep work and done all of these things, it will feel to the other person as if you have done a good job, but they will also understand that you couldn't solve this problem because it's a complicated problem and you may or may not have the domain knowledge to solve this. So what I want you to take away from this is that question, when do I ask for help, how long do I wait, so forth, it all comes down to how big the scope of the problem is. If the bug is a small bug in a small feature, it shouldn't take so long for you to do some upfront investigation. But on the other hand, if it's a really big feature, you might have to sit for quite some hours, maybe even a day or two, doing investigations and trying to figure out all the things before you should ask for help. It all comes down to this fundamental thing. You need to respect the person, the time of that person, the person who you're asking for help. That time is valuable. They want to feel as if you have done your homework, that you have actually really tried to solve this problem on your own before you ask for help. If you can give them that, if you can honestly say that I really gave this a try, then it doesn't matter if it's measured, if you're asking for help when that time is measured in minutes or in hours or days, because it's very clear that you did the best that you could given your current abilities. Have a great day.